Hey everyone! So, for I believe it is fifth, Mommy Needs a Minute, and don't quote me, otherwise it'll be the fourth. So, Mommy Needs a Minute video, and as we know this week, it is the concept of living with a chronic illness. So, many of us have our own little ailments and joint issues or, just typical body situations, but like most of us actually have some form of chronic illness. So, to actually determine what a chronic illness is here, so you guys understand, I actually have the definition of it. So, by definition, a chronic condition is a human health condition or disease that is persistent and otherwise long lasting in its effects, or the disease that comes with time. The term chronic is often applied when the course of the disease lasts for more than 3 months. Now, that's not necessarily. 3 months could be anywhere from 3 months to 3 years to, it could be any length of time. Is if that condition is continuing for an extended period of time, it is classified as condition. Now, people are usually like, okay, well, there's a difference between a chronic illness and a chronic disease, and that is very true. And so, to actually determine what the difference is between a disease or an illness, a disease is defined on the basis of a biomedical disease classification, such as diabetes, asthma, depression are all forms of disease. Chronic illness is the personal experience of living with an affliction that accompanies a chronic disease. So, some of the typical chronic diseases that most people will see along with the chronic illnesses, because as I said, chronic illness is an affliction usually based on a chronic disease that they already have. Common chronic illnesses that most people will identify with, or just even a slight few, is, like I said, depression, diabetes, arthritis, osteoporosis, asthma, COPD, chronic kidney disease, oral disease. So these are just a slight few. So the reason why I decided to do this is because there's two major chronic diseases that I deal with. And one of them I know most people don't talk about very much because for the longest time, for a number of years, it's been classified as a rare disease. But doing my own research into things, because hey, there's not much more that we can do on this pandemic, is research and do anything else to keep our sanity. Paint, i.e., it's one of the things I do. Is a fact of doing research. So the condition that I'm talking about, that's a legitimate skin disease, and I'll give you a little bit of my background on it, is a condition called Hydentitsis Supprativa. So it's a huge word. Some people identify it with just HS. It's a condition that, unfortunately, either it affects male or female. It can be a hereditary issue, but it actually causes boil-like lesions in the skin. It can create tracts or divots. And a lot of people, most of the time, they just pass it off of, oh no, I just got a boil, it's from the heat, whatever. I actually suffered with this condition for over 6 years before actually knowing what it was. I am not going to insert images because, unfortunately, with this disease, some of the images can be quite graphic. I will leave you a basic link in my description below, so then that way if you actually want to understand or know what hidradenitis suppurativa is, you can actually just take a quick gander, so then that way if you actually want to see the pictures of what I'm talking about, you can see it there. So I have most of my problem, and most of the time with women, we'll get our issues underneath our underarms, underneath our breast. A lot of us that have the pouches, either from having children or, we're a little extra curvy, we'll get it underneath that lovely pouch that sits right above their pubic line, and in the crevices of your pubic line. Some of them also get them on their bum or in their crack of their bum. There has been even known for people or women that I've known who gets it on their face. So think acne, but 10 times worse. And one of the worst things that I have about this disease is that it causes extensive scarring. So that's one of the things that I have because as a curvy lady, I'm already a self-conscious person, and I've had problems before with dysmorphia, which means that you have severe issues with your own body image. You're not comfortable within your own skin. You don't want to be in your own skin, and then on top of it, of having this skin disease, which doesn't really help that fact because I can go from one day of feeling like, I'm a badass curvy lady and I'm as sexy as heck. But then another day I'll go where I'm nothing but a disgusting human being. And that's the truth behind it. With some people, this disease unfortunately can be debilitating, and not only in a mental sense, but the physical attributes to this can actually cause them to be so much physically in pain when they are having a flare that it puts them off work. Or if their condition is at a stage 3, it can actually lead to major surgery. One of the big things about this too is that if down the line, if it's not treated or it's not diagnosed within a proper amount of time and it's just left and not treated, and it goes for too long, it can actually lead to some forms of skin cancer. Now, where it's hereditary, I can say for myself, no one in my family before me, so like my mother, my grandmothers, anybody on either both my father's side or my mother's side have actually had this condition before. So I'm original for my family. But I know my grandmother has dealt with issues with like skin cancers and things like that, but they're not specifically directly related to the HS condition. To tell you a little bit about how I deal with it is that, like I said, it took me 6 years of trying to get in to see somebody that could actually diagnose it. I had gone to walking clinics a number of times. There was one time where I ended up in the hospital because one of the boil-like lesions had broke out so bad that it compromised my skin integrity underneath one of my breasts, and it was bad enough that it, trigger warning, it looked like part of the skin inside my breast was coming out through the lesion. So I did go to the hospital for that because I was like, okay, what am I gonna do? Is it big enough that I'm gonna have to get stitched or whatever? But luckily enough, they just bandaged it up, asked me to keep it clean and dry, which is sometimes the only thing you can do, and take the Tylenol for the pain. Some people, sometimes they'll get these lesions, and I don't mean that they're like, little pea size. Some people that have this HS, the lesions can actually be the size of a golf ball, inside their breast or on their belly or in their genital areas. It can become quite scary because you end up with this weird lump that you don't know where it's coming from, and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, it turns into a HS flare. When I was getting married about 4 years ago, I actually was in the middle of a flare. So while I was sitting there in my wedding dress, I had almost like a triangular flare above me right here. So it was covered up by my dress, but my dress definitely needs some serious dry cleaning, because of the fact that not only was it unfortunate, but my dress got caught in my dad's door. So there's oil stains on it, but even washing the dress, there's still some staining because of it. Some people who get them unfortunately, women who get them in their genital area can sometimes end up having them pop while they're wearing underwear or they're wearing nice pants, and it becomes a bloody mess. So they may not be on their monthly, and then all of a sudden they end up with a bloody mess when they're out in public, and that can be extremely embarrassing. Now, like I said, it's not discriminatory. It affects men just as well. I've seen men where it's affected their underarms. It's even sorry, English. It's even affected their breast tissue, or bellies, or in their bottom area. They can get it just as bad. Thing is it honestly doesn't discriminate either based on your size. Like, it doesn't go after someone that's specifically curvy or someone that is specifically, tiny. It can hit you anywhere in any size in between. It all depends on your body chemistry and what your body decides to do. Those are only one of the conditions that I have, but I wanted to bring up this one because I know that there's actually not that much big amounts of information for people with this disorder to rely on. And I just decided to give you a little bit of an insight on specifically how I'm living with this chronic illness. So once I was diagnosed, I was put on a medication. It essentially dries out my body. So I'm constantly having to moisturize and, making sure that my skin is still staying to a form of, moisturization. I also always have to keep lip balm on me because it completely dries out my lips. So in the middle of the summer, I'll look like I have chapped lips from the winter. It can also dry out your eyes, the inside of your nose. And all of these things are unfortunately the adverse effect from the medication in order to help the disease. Because not only on top of that, but anyone that's on this medication has to go get checked for their blood work every month. Because unfortunately, one of the side effects of the medication is it can affect your liver and your cholesterol. So you have to be on top of it. So these are kind of things that I wanted to address. Now, if anybody who knows somebody or who deals with the condition themselves, I would love to hear from you. No, you're not alone. I've known the struggles. I still currently deal with it on the daily. And I find when I don't take my medication, instantly it's almost like I get a flare. So if you are prescribed a medication for this condition, for this awful, awful disease, and you get put on the medication, do your very best to stay on top of it, because otherwise you're going to continue to get the flares. Now, no, you don't take the medication, it's not a cure, blah, blah, blah. But unfortunately, with this disease, there is no cure. There has been research and tests done, but unfortunately, at this time and the foreseeable future, there is no cure for this specific disease. One other big thing I will mention, though, is that this is not contagious. The disease itself is not contagious. Most people are like, oh no, you have a skin disease. And frankly, sometimes with the way the flares look, it looks like it's something that could be contagious, but it's not, which is a good thing. It is not contagious at all. It's something, unfortunately, that your body becomes part of and creates, but it's not contagious. So that's one of the good things about that. A lot of people can get it mixed up. The whole concept of the HS acronym, or initials, can get it mixed up with something else that is potentially very contagious, but this is not. So again, if you have liked the information that I have provided to you in this video, hit me up down below, make a comment, and I might actually do a few more videos on living with chronic illness, whether I know it specifically of myself or whether I know someone close to me is dealing with an illness and they just kind of want to put their 2 cents out there on how they deal with the living with that chronic illness or disease. So let me know. And otherwise, subscribe to me if you like my content. I do 2 videos every week. So I usually do one on Wednesdays and I do one on Saturdays, which is a create with me video. So stay tuned, because one coming this week is I'm painting my husband's cell phone case and we're going to see what we can do with it. Again, I will link in some information in the description and you guys can check that out yourself. Thanks for your time, everybody. Love yous. Bye.